Hello everyone! This chess game that we are taking a look at today from the recently completed Chess.com Classic Champions Chess Tour has the ability to act as therapy if you let it. How? Well, this is the game that made Magnus Carlsen completely lose it, punching his webcam, throwing his water bottle, which is something that some of you may have done yourself if you have lost a chess game, particularly one that you were winning. And you might have thought to yourself, you know, if I was just a little better at chess or a lot better at chess, if I was as good as Magnus Carlsen, maybe I wouldn't freak out because I'd be happy with the way I played. Well, this game proves that that's not necessarily true. You can be the best player on the planet and you can still screw everything up and you can still completely lose it at the end of the game, which means that the problem is not how good you are at chess. The problem is something else. Why you're getting so angry when you lose could be caused by a variety of things, but whatever it's caused by, the solution is probably a lot easier than getting really, really good at chess. So that's the good news for you, and that's how this game can act as therapy. But enough of the psychobabble. Let's get into the actual moves of this game and see what happened. In this position, Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces against Magnus Carlsen playing black played bishop to f5, which is a move I don't really like to play as black at this point because it can run into queen to f3, which is not what Alireza played, but it attacks the bishop, and let's say you do something about that. Now we have the problem of the capture on f6 and messing up the black pawn structure. I guess Carlsen wasn't worried about this, and Alireza didn't really like this too much either because, you know, black does have the two bishops to compensate for these horrible pawns. The queens are off the board, and at this high level of play, it probably becomes more likely for the game to end in a draw as opposed to what Alireza played, knight g to e2, which blocks the light squared bishop. Why are you going to do that? Well, you want to play f3. He's going to go for his big center. Okay, so Carlsen hits his bishop. It drops back to h4. We have some development. Okay, so f3, getting ready for e4, bishop to e7 from Carlsen, bishop to f2 now because you want to play knight to g3 with tempo on the bishop, also supporting e4. Good move. Okay, so bishop to h7 is anticipating that knight move, which comes next. Now we got queen to b6 from Carlsen hitting b2, queen to d2 defends. We have a castling. We have bishop to e2, guarding against knight to g4. After the pawns push to e4 and pawns are exchanged, you don't want that knight g4 move. Okay, here comes a rook to the half-open file. Now we got e4 from Alireza. Pawn takes, and what do you do when your opponent has achieved a nice big pawn center? Well, you attack it, which is what Carlsen does with c5. But this is actually premature. It's not a good move because Alireza has this nice move e5. Okay, Carlsen's knight is hit. It doesn't really have any square to move to, but Carlsen does have this move c takes d4, which is actually completely losing. He thought it was okay. What he needed to play here was rook a to d8, and if he sacrifices the knight like this, e takes f6, knight takes f6, white is still better, but he has some chances here. This pawn's pinned. He may win that pawn. His pieces are very active. The white king's stuck in the center. But, you know, he doesn't do that. He takes on d4. He thinks everything's okay. The problem with this move is that there's bishop takes d4, hitting the queen. Okay, and now he does have bishop to c5, and he's hoping for bishop takes, knight takes, and then here, if Alireza were to try to take on f6, there would be this very beautiful knight to d3 check. You can't take the knight. This bishop's pinned. You know, it's defended by this bishop here, so you're going to be moving your king somewhere. You don't want to go to f1 because then you're getting checkmated here on f2, so you're going to go to d1, and then the rook's going to come in like this, opposite the white queen, opposite the king. White is just totally busted here. But, of course, Alireza did not do that because instead, back here, he had this knight to a4 move, which is much better and winning. Okay, it's hitting the queen. Carlsen moves the queen to c6. Now we take off the bishop. Knight takes. And then Alireza throws away the win. All he needed to do here was to simplify with bishop takes c5, queen takes, and then take the knight on f6. But instead, he allowed Carlsen to keep pieces on the board. You don't want him to keep pieces on the board when you're ahead in material. He took on f6, which allows rook a to d8. Now the bishop's pinned. Now you're not taking that knight off the board. Okay, now here, if you try to hang on to the material with something like queen to c3, because the problem was this bishop was pinned and it's going to be attacked again, right? Which is what you'll see in the game. This was not played in the game. There's this crazy computer line that I just have to show you. Carlsen would have this move here, knight to d3 check again. Okay, again, if you can't take the knight with the queen or the bishop, you know, the bishop's helping guard and this bishop's pinned. Okay, so you're moving the king and then knight to f4, hitting the bishop. Okay, you move the bishop and then queen to a4, hitting this bishop with 2 pieces. Okay, you're hanging on, you got the extra piece, but then here comes rook to d3, hitting the queen. And then I just got to show you this line. There's other lines that are relevant too here, but I can't show you everything to show you why this is actually drawn. Queen takes, bishop takes. I want to give you this little quiz position here though. What should black play in this position to draw the game? The only move that draws, what is it? The move is rook takes f3 check. You take with the pawn and then bishop to d3 check. And there's going to be a perpetual like this. Knight to h3 check, king goes here, back to f4. See, there you go. Now, did Alireza see all this? Highly doubt it. But he just instinctively knew that back here, after rook a to d8, just giving the bishop back and getting the king to safety was probably going to be a good idea. Now we have knight to e6, attacking the bishop twice. It's not going to be saved. So we have bishop to f3, hitting Carlsen's queen. It goes to d6. We can take on g7. Here comes queen takes d4 with check. The queens come off the board. Alireza picks up a pawn here on b7. We got knight to e2 check. Knights are traded. Rook takes on e2, hits this pawn on b2. It's pushed to b4. Okay, now we take the pawn on g7. So the smoke clears here. And Alireza is a pawn up, but Carlsen's pieces are getting very active. Look at these rooks coming in. But the engine actually thinks that white is better with the extra pawn. It's, you know, it's not afraid of this kind of thing. Rook to f4, played by Alireza, defending the b pawn. We got rook to b2. Okay, so he's pushing his queenside pawns. Now we have this cute move from Carlsen, threatening to come into d1 with this rook here. So bishop to f3 stops that. It guards d1. And now we have f5. Okay, a little luft for the king here with h3. The king's getting active. Okay, and what ends up happening is Carlsen's getting his king very active. The engine says it's a dead draw. Carlsen's piece activity is perfectly compensating him for his pawn deficit. Rook to h4 now from Alireza, targeting this h pawn here. We have bishop to e4. The bishops are exchanged. Rook to h5 check, and then we pick up the pawn on h6. And despite the fact that Alireza now has 2 extra pawns, Carlsen's pieces are becoming dangerously active. Look at this king, this passed pawn. These rooks are going to infiltrate soon. But it's still a dead draw, according to the all-seeing stockfish. Alireza getting these pawns moving over here. Rook to c8 is threatening checkmate with rook to c1. So rook to f6 is what Alireza plays in order to block that, which is a horrible blunder and gives Carlsen a winning position. What he should have played here instead was rook to a1. Now this allows this rook to infiltrate like this, but you can throw in a check. And if you try to start moving forward with the king, we're just going to have a series of checks. Okay, what about moving this way? You're going to have the check from the rook here. The king goes here. We can check like this. See, it's just not going anywhere. Then you can try to go to d2, but then king to f2, the white king gets out. Black has nothing. So that is a draw, though. Rook to f6 is a completely losing move because we have rook to c1 check from Carlsen, who is now winning. Okay, the check is blocked as planned, but now Carlsen makes a blunder, throws away the win. His winning line here was rook takes f1, king takes, and then e3, getting the pawn going. And here's just a little sample line. White is going to be too slow. Let's say you try to push your passed pawn. The king's going to come over here, and the point is the king's coming to f3, and that's just the end of the road for white. You know, you even get to g6, but look at this. Okay, checkmate is threatened. You got to stop that. So you guard this b1 square here, and then rook to h2, threatening to come in like this. So now you got to move your king, and now you got this, unfortunately. Check, picking up the pawn. It's all over. So that was just one winning line for you there. There's other lines too, but we're not going to get into everything. We just want to look at what was played in the game now. Rook c to c2 from Magnus Carlsen. It looks very scary because you're threatening checkmate this way now, starting with rook g2 and then rook h2, and then the other rook comes to g2. That's checkmate. But there's a very beautiful way to deal with this, and that is rook to g3. Dual purpose, guarding g2, getting behind the passed pawn, and suddenly Alireza is winning. Carlsen pushes his pawn to e3, but here we go with g5. We got rook f2, okay, rook e1, getting in front of the pawn. He wants to get those rooks off of the board, and he achieves it. But in this position, after g6, Carlsen's rook is in front of his passed pawn. That's not where you want to be. Alireza's is behind his passed pawn. So what we have is rook e1 check, king goes to g2. Is there going to be a perpetual? No. King goes to f1. Now what are you doing? You're throwing in a check? Hoping to set up some kind of last-minute mating net to save him. After g7, king d3 does threaten mate, but there's king to f1. A check is given, the king goes to g2, another check is given, and once the king gets to f3, Magnus Carlsen has to resign the game. He is all out of checks, and Alireza is going to promote that pawn. So let's see how the game could have ended. If the pawn is pushed, there's king to f2, discovered check, king goes to d2, and then just rook here to g1. And the promotion square is covered with the king and the rook. This pawn is unstoppable. So a horrific turn of events in this game for Magnus Carlsen, who had a completely crushing position and was just absolutely devastated by his screw-up, as many of us are. But I hope that after watching this, you feel a little bit of encouragement that even the greatest player on the planet is not immune from feeling totally devastated because he threw away a whole game's worth of work in a single blunderous decision. In this case, that decision was to play rook c to c2 right here, which looked very scary, but which was brilliantly dealt with this move, rook to g3 from Alireza. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.